Hi, Tony from All the Remote Things here today, and I've got Scott. Scott, I think it's time that you introduce yourself to everyone, and you can tell them how to say your last name.
Hey, I'm Scott from Scotland. Okay. How to say my last name is really, really easy. Okay. If you're baking a cake, right, and you wanted to get the flour sifted, what would you use?
A sieve.
Right. And if you wanted to do that, correctly, how would you do it?
Scott Seivwright. Hey!
There you go. Now, really funny story, because I was telling this one, I've been working in Stevenage in England, and it's down next to Cambridge where my brother got married. Okay. And when when the minister was marrying them, he said, will you take, he said, repeat after me. I, Ross Seivwright. And he went, I, Ross Seivwright. And then everyone in the audience for the family went, that's not your name. Well, we get Seivwright a lot. The other thing I get a lot is Steve. For the amount of people that call me Steve.
Really?
After the radio announcer,
Oh, brilliant. All right.
I hear you used to be a radio announcer.
Oh, there's a rumor that goes around about that. I can see how this is going to go tonight. This is going to be brilliant. So,
I've got a question. Are you doing a lot of remote working?
Sorry, what was that?
Are you doing a lot of remote working?
I am doing a lot of remote working, Scott.
How do you like to remote work?
I love it. It's changed my life.
In what way do you like to do it?
Who's doing the okay? So yeah, I'm loving it because it's changed. So for me, where I live on an island, right? And I live about 50 kilometers from the major city, and it would take me an hour and a half one way every day. So 2.5 odd hours, 3 hours to get home. I'm not missing that commute. I'm not missing the cost. I'm not missing all of those sorts of things, and the time I get to spend with my family, and I can still do as much work as I ever did. And at lunchtime, I'm going to have a swim. I can rub that in a little bit for those that are listening. So
paddle boarding.
Yeah, that's it. The paddle boarding and that kind of thing. And of course, you see the vibrancy. It's not just me. It's the vibrancy of this small community has come back as well. People are here. They're spending more time here. They're spending more time in the community doing things. So that's why I love it. And I can see that that's a benefit for others as well. So it's brilliant to me. What about you, Scott? Have you been working remote?
I have been working remote.
Hybrid.
You know how I like to work remote? Under a blanket.
Yes. For those that are listening, Scott may have been under a blanket and not quite got here when I was waiting for him, but that's all right. Well,
but you know why I like to be? You know why I like to work under a blanket?
Why is that?
I like to work undercover.
Oh, gee, I walked into that one, didn't I?
That was a long walk for a bad joke.
All right.
Right, come on, ask me some questions.
We should move on, shall we? All right. Let's just talk a little bit. So Scott, you've been doing the Agile thing for quite some time, and I've known you for some time, and the future of Agile. I think I did some talks with you as well. In Scotland there, which were a few years ago, just as the remote thing was starting to hit, and we were sort of talking about how that was going to get there. Since then, you've been on a bit of a journey. So we've seen you involved with Agile 20 Reflect. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about how that all came about and what was really the drive for that?
Yeah, let's start with a chain of events, okay? My best friend Martin Burns died. Okay, when he died, there were a couple of things happened after. One was it kind of coincided with me not working and finishing up with a client, and having some time to go to things, and the other thing was his funeral. So let's talk about those two things, because these two things join. Okay. At his funeral, Joanna Masaraf came up to me and said, you know what Martin's legacy was? You know what Martin would have loved? And I said, what? If we all went off and did things. And I thought about this and I went, okay. Martin and I used to run Scaling Agile Scotland. And we had a bit of tension on that because Martin was very much into SAFe. I was very much into other things. So we had a little bit of tension going there. And I thought, to Joanna's point, that if we could get a group of people to do different things, we could maybe try and cover all the things Martin did, because he was amazing. He mentored people. He was much better than I am. Yeah. He did all the international talks. He did you know, maybe a bit of a controversial figure with a love of safe, but so that kind of really struck home. Also, I wanted to know what to do with scaling Agile, this Scotland group. And around about that time, I went to, because I was off not working, I went to like a business meetup, and I spotted someone. That's Sathpal Singh.
Yeah.
And Sathpal and I had known each other from London Lean Kanban days, but we never really spoke. And it turns out we were both out of work at the same time, so we kind of went for bacon roll, which is always funny because Sathpal is a Sikh and he wears a turban. So, when I say like omelette for me, bacon roll for my friend, they always look and go, no, I say, he's not Muslim. Because nobody knows the difference between a Sikh and a Muslim, really.
Shout out to Sathpal if he's watching this. He's a great friend of ours. The great Sathpal, as we call it. Anyway.
Yeah. So, Sathpal and I really got on together. And at that time, I'd had some pretty difficult things going on. Some from my childhood, some from Martin's death, some other things. And we just spoke, and Sathpal and I just hit it off. We just 100% hit it off. I said, look, you want to come over and help me with this scaled Agile Scotland. And at the time, I thought it needs a refresh. Spoke to a few people about that. One of them is, one of my early Agile mentors in Scotland, a great guy called Chris McDermott. And he was saying, look, it's not about Agile, it's about the future of work. Agile is just one of the strands of the future of work, but it's about the future of work. So we rebranded, we found a logo, we did everything else. Sath came into the group. He kind of co-hosted it, as we did with Don Henderson. So a lot of the guys from the Scale group came over and we said, look, we're broadening this out. This isn't about Scale group. It's about the future of work. And then I said to Sath, take over. You run it. You're better than me. I'll be in the background. Yeah. But you take this forward. At the same time, Joanna Masraf, and this is a bit you'll love, Joanna was saying, I'm a single parent. I can't go to meetups. I can't go to all these fancy meetups you have. So what I'm going to do is start doing a remote meetup. Okay. And this was, again, it was like, here's the one thing I want to do with Martin's legacy. I'm going to do remote, and that'll help single parents like me. So Sath and I and some others, we kind of helped, and there was a really small cadre of people doing these remote meetups. At the same time, we've got the future of work, which is, Melissa Perry and big settings and things, big things like that. When the pandemic hit, right, said to Sath, let's pivot to do what Joanna does. Okay, Joanna's done it. She's pioneered it. We know how it works. Yeah. Get yourself a Zoom account. And then let's speak to the people around about the world who are actually got their shit together, as we'd say in Scotland, on this stuff. And that's when we I kind of called you up, and I knew about your stuff because of the Heart of Agile stuff. We can talk about the Heart of Agile a little bit in a bit, but that's really, and we talked to Team Topologies people that first couple of weeks. There was you, there was Team Topologies, there was Joanna Rothman and Mark Kilby, with their
good friends of remote AF.
Yeah, and so that little tranche there, and what we did was we stepped up the pace to weekly, and the reason we did that was everyone was locked in, nobody was out.
Aye. Yeah, that was the truth, wasn't it? Right. So you had access to a lot of people who were keen to do something, but they had a lot of time and nowhere to go. Not
just that. I think it was helping us with the trauma of what was happening.
Yeah. It was great.
Sath, around about that time, I was working at NatWest, and I was taking a lot of the learning that was getting from the meetups, and this is why meetups and podcasts are really important. And we were trying experiments at work. Yeah. We were kind of pushing it, bizarrely. Some people don't like, kind of remote interaction, remote check-ins, remote, ficas of that. They just, I'm a developer. I've been working remote for 5 years. Why do I have to show up and tell my feelings? Was one of the feedbacks we got. but other people loved it. And around about that time, they were looking for a community leader in the bank to help the engineering, and Saf came in to the bank, and you know, and it was really good. And we kind of worked together in the bank for about, I think it was about 3 weeks, and then and then the you know, the pandemic came, and then we were kind of working remote. We did a lot of stuff. We did open space stuff. You know, we got involved with Daniel. We did tons and tons and tons of stuff. We're going to fast forward a little bit. I know this story might be this is like a history. So it's a really good story. We're coming up to a 1-year anniversary of Martin's death. And one thing that I was angry about at the time, and I'm not angry about now, was that Martin did get a lot of flack for liking Safe. Yeah, Martin loves Safe. Don't know why. I think it was because he's very musical. Okay, he's very Christian and very musical. So I think I liked a little bit of kind of like order. And I think the cadence in Safe is a bit like the cadence when you pull an orchestra together. And I think that appealed to what Martin liked. But Martin was also very into lean agile. But one of the things I realized that when I was in the remote memorial to Martin was I would have to use Zoom groups. For the interaction, I would have to push everyone into the psychological safe group. So we had a lean agile group, we had a safe group, you know, and everyone, yeah, and everyone self-navigated. Those were 5 groups, you know. There was kind of like the Edinburgh party group that Tony was in and everything else. So it was Tony Christensen, the other great Australian Tony. And coming out of that, I thought, what a pity I've had to put people into different Zoom groups, because our industry is so split and so disrespectful of ourselves. Okay. And at that point, I suddenly had the idea, why don't we try and bring everyone together? So I'm in a few networks and communities. So the idea was, why don't we bring people in and try and have as many events as possible? And one of the things that in the physical world, your conference center dictates how many people you've got. Yeah, you can only have X amount of talks. And the dynamics of conferences are, you need to get your keynote speakers in to try and sell you tickets.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Nobody's going to come and see a first-time speaker. You then need to reward the organizing committee by giving them some speaking bits. Then you need to reward your sponsors by giving them some sponsor places. Yeah, and then there's the people that really hit last time, really rocked and rolled, and really had the place full, and really had the great feedback. So you want to get the hits back again. So maybe they're in the mid-tier level. Okay, I reckon you've only got about 6 competable spaces per conference.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah, it's probably right.
So if you look at Access Agile, if you look at Agile Alliance as big Nashville conference, yeah, I think they probably had about 2,000 to 3,000 submissions for 6 places.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I thought, why don't we turn this around? Why don't we do something where we bring people together? We don't let any of the existing agencies control it. Everyone means everyone. This is one of our, this was one of our mantras. The next bit, which is really interesting, is we're not editing anyone and we're not blocking anyone. Okay. I think there's only one speaker we didn't have, right? That was because, well, I'm not. You said, is there any areas we don't want to go into? I'm not going to go into that one. We did have some complaints about other speakers that we didn't take on board, because we investigated them and we had a little committee there to look at it, and they thought that there wasn't enough cause for it. So we run 800 events around the world in a month over the 20th anniversary.
Stop right there, Scott, because I think that's worthy of letting everyone know how many that was again. Say that number again.
800.
800 events. So just think about that. If you calculate it, 800 events running around the world, and many of them simultaneously. So it's an amazing achievement. Continue on, but I think that's a really big point.
Well, let's call out some of those. So some of these events were huge. Okay, so Dean Leffingwell did the history of SAFE. Right, we had 300 Russian mothers doing a talk about using Agile in the home in Russian.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been talking to the Ukrainians. So there was a couple of to do this, we had to have people in country running things. I've actually been talking to the Ukrainian ambassadors now, because imagine he's remote working in Ukraine in the at the current time. So it's really funny. There was a kind of a Nigerian housewife called Grace, and she said, "What would you like me to do?" And I said, "I'd like you to set up an international ambassador network around the world." And it's like turning around to a Nigerian housewife and saying, "I want you to set up a State Department."
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty amazing, diverse experience. I can tell you that myself. Having participated in that, I was one of the ran that panel, if you remember it. And one of the little pinch me moments was we had people from all walks just on that panel itself. And I was looking, going, what would be the likelihood of getting this group together in a physical environment? And the answer was probably nil, right? So
26,000 people, we reckon. Now, some of them may be double counted because they went to multiple events. Yeah. But still, about 26,000 people turned up. Okay, so in organizing, we had to do a couple of things, and I'm going to shout out to a few people on this. So, Daniel Mezick did a lot of work in the background, and Dave Snowden did a lot of work in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Sadly, when they both came in, they had a big argument in Slack, and it kind of killed the vibe. Yeah, all the women went quiet. Okay, Esther, Joanna, Diana, everyone. As soon as the boys started arguing about rules of conduct, so we pulled together a pretty good code of conduct. We got some, we got some patrons, and even in the patrons, we were trying to show diversity. They were looking for new voices. Yeah, so we had 3 people who were original manifesto signers who were male. We had 3 women who have been around since that long, and for some quirk of fate weren't invited. Yeah. Okay. So Lisa, Esther, Johanna, and when we had the patrons discussion, there was a big debate there, and our friend Gabby kind of led the charge on that one. Why were there no women? It was a really big topic. Why were there no women at the but we also had some new speakers. Yeah. April, and we had some people from Russia and places as well. And so this group, we also had Simon Wardley. So this group was really, it wasn't your usual clique, and by putting them on the stage at the top of the bill, well, it wasn't really that. It was as patrons. It kind of said we're different, we're really open, we're really diverse, and we encouraged that. We had coaches for the first time speakers. Yeah.
So I think the question everybody's asking, Scott, are you going to do it again? Because I think an event like that was so special. I don't think it's just a one-off. And the encouragement, and one of the reasons I wanted to get you on here today was to talk to you about, is this going to happen again? Because the opportunities that gave so many people, not just experienced speakers like yourself, but I've been around a long time, and lots of others like the ones you've mentioned. But there are a lot of people who got chances to do that, and I think it's an admirable thing that we should continue with. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we did it again in October.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So we're going to sign you up to that. Everyone's heard.
Oh, we did it again last October. So
sign you up again this year, though.
No. So let's look at that. It was really hard to do it in October the second time. Okay. And this time we had something like 300 events on 3 days.
That's right. Yeah, I was involved in that one as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of the events weren't well attended. So we'd actually came to the point on there was, I think that the speakers were outnumbering some of the audiences.
Right. Okay.
So we had a bit of a puzzle around about that time. The other thing was, I got a hell of a lot of good, talented people together to put the first festival on. Yeah. But there's a thing about good, talented people. They all want their own thing. And I found it really hard to keep that group of 12 people together. Some were tired. A lot of us, ended up, doing more work and, in more things. So what I deliberately said, look, what I want to do with this is to be like a dandelion. Do you have dandelions in Australia?
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah. So, the dandelion's one flower, but it's got lots of seeds, and the seeds go off and do things. And I said, I think for the 20th, we do that. We might do the 25th. Yeah. But I certainly couldn't sustain doing a free conference of that intensity with no staff or no payment every year. Okay. We could scale it back, we could do other things, but this almost needed to be like self-organizing. Okay. And there is a lot of self-organizing things there, but I think I wore myself out. So I think heading into Christmas, Saf and I think we both wore ourselves out, and then a few of the people in the committee didn't like each other anymore. As can happen,
as committees do.
Yeah, so I encourage people to do other things. So one of the things we did was Agile World, and it went off, and it's been very successful. SAFPAL has taken over the British Computing Society conference, and they made it like a first-time speaker conference now. Okay, so that's a new thing. So that's, again, I feel that's a child of what we did.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So you can ask me about my future plans. I would like to do something in the future, but it needs to be self-organizing. The other thing was it was difficult to get to the point where people were self-promoting more than doing something of value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And difficult to police on 300 events. So the first time speaker thing's great. I think the remote thing was great, and I think there was definitely a lot of goodwill. So yeah, we will do something in that space. The other thing was in January I picked up a team, so I've got 18 people that I work for now. A couple of those teams were a bit in red status, so I've had to kind of directly step in and do some like team coaching. We just hired about 7 people. I've had to kind of bring them all in. The analogy I'm using is I'm trying to take a group of cats and turn them into wolves, right? So wolves are sharp, wolves are intelligent, wolves know what they want, wolves aren't wasteful, yeah, and cats just don't align. So intellectually, that's been taking a lot of my time up. And genuinely, nobody really asks about Access Agile. This is the first time we'd asked in ages.
You see, that's I wanted to cover that for sure. And look, we only have a certain amount of time. So one of the things I did want to sort of cover, and that was brilliant. And what I would say to people, if you feel like you want to get involved, well, there will be some details at the end of this. You can talk to Scott because he's always very open to chatting to people.
I'll give you my email address that I use on LinkedIn.
Yeah, the one that you don't answer. No. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about you. The wonderful and venerable Saf and yourself, talking at Agile America, Nashville.
Yes. Yeah. Agile 20. Yeah. Agile 2020.
It's the talk that I'm interested in. So talk to me about that. Talk to me what what the content of that is, because it's something near and dear to our hearts. But I think people.
So the last event I did with my dear friend Martin Burns, right, just before he died, and I fell out with him because he wouldn't buy a pint. Was a World Cafe. Now that was also the last time I was with Tony Christensen, because it was just before Tony Christensen went off to get his visa and was never allowed to return to Edinburgh again.
He came back to, for those that are listening, he came back to Tony's a great friend of mine as well, and came back to Australia to look after his house. And of course, COVID came along. He wasn't allowed to leave for a couple of years. Anyway, continue on, Scott.
Okay, so that last event, that was a World Cafe, and Martin and I, we both had tables in that World Cafe, and I remember being in the topics and using the World Cafe, and I've loved the World Cafe. I got the idea from our good friend Alistair Coburn. When we did the first Heart of Agile Scotland meeting, said we need something to get interaction. He said World Cafe, and I've never heard of it. So having run it a few times, remote and non-remote, I thought there's a huge power here. Now, I think how we're going to work together and how we can keep community, and Saf and I have got the podcast Making Community. I'll links in the show notes, people. Okay. How what that's about is talking to people around about how they're managing to make community in this strange world we're in, this strange new world. And some of that will be community practice, and some of that will be general communities. I mean, I'm into jazz at the moment, so I'm in the jazz community in Scotland, got all the jazz events. So what's your tribe? How are you holding it together? But how are we doing it in a remote world? How did we do burn suppers when everything was remote? These are great questions. Let's get the people in that overcame the problems and find it. Yeah. So I got a kind of note to say, the closing papers are coming in for Agile 2022. I thought, well, that's never going to happen. Well, let's put a paper in. So I phoned up Sath at about midnight. I said, let's put a paper in. He goes, right. Let's do something interactive. He went, yeah. Let's do a World Cafe. Yeah. What's the biggest issue we've got just now? How to do community in a hybrid world. It's really difficult. We have people in different time zones. We've now spread our teams. We've pushed our development teams out to India. We've still got our POs in the USA. UK very much is a bit of a bridge. We might be nearshoring stuff. We've got all these cultures, so culture mapping, everything like that. And then there's a lot of interesting things, because when we're all online, I noticed that men talk more than women. Yeah, and we don't really have kind of polite ways to say, dude, stop sucking the oxygen. Yeah. I remember being in a Scottish business call with all the men talking and me saying, why is it that all these business women from Scotland aren't talking and all these men are? They'd be more polite and waiting for, a natural gap. Yeah. And then two men tried to explain why that was happening. And I'm like, dude, don't you think we should speak to some of the women and find out what they're thinking? So there's all that dynamics going on. How do we keep inclusion? Some of the people we employ in other places might not really be kind of happy or comfortable with their backgrounds to them in their house, or the noise in their house, or so they don't want to have their cameras on. So lots of issues. So here's the thing. I don't think there's a body of knowledge that's got all this. So the podcast is doing some exploring. And the idea of the podcast was it would be like Anthony Bourdain and the Cook's Tour. So we go around, talk to people, how are you doing it? Then we can take the recipes back. So, World Cafe, let's see if we can get 10 tables. Get some tablecloths, do the visual capture on the tablecloths, right? And then take that back to the podcast as a bit of learning. And the other thing that's really interesting that we could do here, I think is really, really interesting, is we can have celebs on each of the tables. So I've already got Scott Ambler and others, Seb Rose, and people are going to do a table. So not only you come to cafe, you can also on your table you can meet some of your heroes, right? And we're doing 4 rotations, so you get a chance to hit 4 of your heroes.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
The topics are going to be about inclusion, about all the problems we've said, right? And all the learning from that. Yeah, I think that's going to be a book that Seth and I are going to put together.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm interested to see how that comes out, because obviously with remote AF, that's the species of making remote and hybrid work better. And my commitment to you is when you've actually done that, we'll do another one of these casts, because I'll be interested to hear what you've got out of it, what the themes are, and I'm sure everyone else will be interested to hear what you've seen and heard.
Come closer.
Yes, Scott.
I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell anyone else. Okay? We're quite inclusive in the Making Community podcast, and Mao can't make it. He can't go from Mexico and spend £2,500 on a ticket. Yeah, and £1,000 to go. So I've got a bit of an idea, and I haven't told Agile Alliance this, but I was thinking of doing a simultaneous remote online version at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear, Scott.
All I was going to do was hack it, put it up on the big screen, and as well as the people in the room, there's people all over the world doing it. Now we could do that under Access Agile, couldn't we?
You could do that, indeed. Yes, we could do that under Access Agile.
And a lesser man would probably ask for permission to do
that. Of course, hopefully by the time I've released this, that's happened.
If you're in the Agile Alliance and you're watching this, right? Okay, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, correct. This will have happened by then, I think. So No, that'll be brilliant. That'll be brilliant. Look, we're getting close to the end of our time, unfortunately, Scott. We could talk forever, as we always do when we get.
We don't talk enough.
Well,
Heart of Agile group's not active enough.
See, and this is what Scott does. So anyone who doesn't know Scott, he's very good at poking the bear, and he's right. By the way, he's right. And if you poke the bear, you poke it again, and you poke it again to see what happens, right? So that's brilliant. Look, I was really keen to get you on because I wanted to hear about some of those things, and I love that background you've given us. The World Cafe one's really interesting, and what I would say to you is let us know so we can help support that, right? If you're going to go to that virtual thing, let us know. Again, as I said, I will get you back on because I'm sure there'll be a part 2 to this, and we'll want to hear what happened, what you found out, and what you experienced, right? And that is if you haven't been strung up, of course, for doing it.
As my old boss used to say, here comes Mr. Seivwright, the man they couldn't hang because they couldn't find a rope long enough.
Look, it's been a great conversation, and thank you for coming on all the remote things today, or this evening for you. So it's it's evening for me, morning for you there. That's what it is. That's what happens when you work in these mixes. You lose your time values as well. How can people get in touch with you is the big thing here. How can they get involved in these things? Access Agile, Priestable, get involved in the World Cafe, all these things that you're talking about. How can people actually get you in? And please don't give them that other email.
Genuinely, right? I am on LinkedIn. I do get a lot of messages, so I respond to chat. So actually, one of the new guys that's working with me said, I sent you some emails. And I went, yeah, I don't do email. So yeah, I just genuinely, I've got 7 email accounts. Most of it is, reminders to things. So I tend to respond to chat. If you contact me on LinkedIn, I will accept you. Yeah. And if you chat with me, I will see it. And if you message me to say you're late for the podcast, just after I got my word out in three. Yeah. And you know what? If you need help with something, I'm usually I usually know someone that can help. And the reason I say that is I'm usually helping so many other people. I can't help everybody, but there's usually someone closer or local to help. The final thing I would say is to make our community work, our Agile community, we need to have a service mind. Okay? So we need to help people. I was having this discussion the other day because we've got a WhatsApp group that finds people find work. And it moved from that because nobody was looking for work. Because in our industry just now, employment's really good. And it moved into I called it a monologue. Yeah. And I'm like, right, we're going to expand this out to people that need work. Okay. And some people said, no, we like this small group of people that we all know. I went, yeah, clique. So have a service dimension in your life. Help other people. That's my big thing. And the reason to do that is it will help with your positive psychology. When you help other people, you will feel happier.
Thank you, mate. It's been brilliant having you on. For those that are listening, just remember, if you've listened to this and you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, amplify, all remote things for all things remote. Thanks again, Scott, for joining us on all the remote things.
Quick one before you go.
Oh, see, you always have to get the last bit in. Right?
When you're looking at LinkedIn, right? How do you pronounce my name?
Now, have you heard the thing where you get a sieve and you're right? Because if you put those together, wonderful. Thank you very much.
I love you, guy.